I don't know about some of these thumbnails they're coming up with. Some of them look a little weird. Ah, well. Anyway, Phoebe Rizzo, back at it. Hello, Void. How are you? And after our last one didn't work out so bad, I decided to keep the positivity going, and we're back into the Wolfman. This time, actually going with the Wolfman. Actually, as advertised this time. Okay, so again, like what I said when I was discussing a lot of the Frankenstein movies, with how classic it is, it's kind of hard to criticize as for certain things. But here we go anyway. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still a very effective film. And well shot, well acted, makeup is great, and holds a fair amount of suspense, and you do kind of feel for what the main character is going through, particularly for Larry Talbot, and coming to terms with now being a werewolf. There are still some issues here that I can pick at a little bit, but that's mostly an old Hollywood problem, I think. But I'll get to that in a second. So, story. It's the Wolfman. Most people know the basic story, but for a little bit of details, Lon Chaney Jr. plays Larry Talbot, returning to his ancestral seat in London, I think, and begins immediately peeping on the local girls. After convincing one of them, pretty much stalking them, into going with him to a fortune teller, one thing leads to another, and a werewolf attack happens, killing the friend of the woman he is interested in. However, he, having previously purchased a silver-headed cane, beat the wolf to death, but was bitten in the attack. And as the next couple nights unfold, he's realizing that all this werewolf talk may be legit, as he can't account for where he's going at night, or why people around him are suddenly turning up dead. Alright, so the emotional aspects of this film do come through quite nicely, actually. And partnered with Werewolf of London, from my previous review, it does establish more of the what's now seen as canonical werewolf lore. This one adding the silver bullet aspect to it, which was previously wasn't in the last one, as well as having more of a bestial aspect to it. This one also adds a bit of lore about the werewolves having a 5-pointed star marking on them, indicating that they're a werewolf, usually around the spot they were bitten, and also says that they will see a similar mark on the hand of their next victim, kind of adding to the werewolf wanting to stalk those closest to them and sort of marking their targets. This isn't as widely established, but still filters into a few things in the modern day, but doesn't crop up nearly as much as, well, the silver bullets, and does further add to the werewolf bite being transmitted by, lycanthropy being transferred by bite, and the werewolf turning at the full moon. Both of those aspects were explored in the earlier one, Werewolf of London, but this one, again, reinforces it. So between the two of those movies, most of werewolf lore was pretty much established. Which, I can see why a lot of it caught on. It adds a little bit more depth to the legends, as before, many countries had various werewolf or beastman lore, but it was so disparate, this one kind of puts it together into a unique spin and then gives something to grow off of from there. The main issue I have in this one, and it's largely an old Hollywood problem rather than Wolfman in and of itself, and that's the romance. Okay, I'll grant you the characters do have chemistry. However, the romance goes like this. Man spies on woman with telescope, and proceeds to then go over to flirt with her. Pretending he's psychic by knowing things about her, which really comes across as creepy, and proceeds to completely harass and badger her until she She doesn't even agree to going out with him, he just decides she does, and he shows back up later. Granted, when they are together, they do have chemistry. Main crux of the problem here is she is engaged to a childhood friend. So someone she knows quite well, has been around for a long time, and I'd assume likes. So he comes in, and once he discovers that she is engaged, he does try to smooth things a bit, but doesn't stop him from continuing to flirt with her, even though he doesn't seem to be as actively pursuing her. That said, this movie takes over the course of about 3 nights, and by the end of it, she's ready to run away with him. Over maybe 4 meetings. I mean, for the fiance, we do see him. He's in a couple scenes, and nothing is really indicated as off about him. And he seems to have at least some some rapport with her, though we don't see enough of it to really say, but that she'd have no reason to suddenly ditch him for Larry. So it's just kind of shoehorned in there for someone to feel more sad over what he's going through. Though Larry does try to call things off and run away once he realizes he's a monster. But the fact that she wants to pursue him and run away with him is sudden and probably concerning. So that part does not hold up really in the slightest. I mean, I could forgive that school of Hollywood romance a little bit more if you'd taken the engagement out, and if she just did the old school suddenly fell in love, because like I said, they do have chemistry. But building that up of her just casually tossing aside her existing romance for random guy A doesn't really work very well. Especially when you factor in how stalkery he was beginning in the beginning, so that does make it a little bit harder to forgive. So it's a couple all those elements coming together to make it a little cringeworthy. But overall, The Wolfman is still an enjoyable film. And overlooking that, I can still give it a pretty positive review. Lon Chaney Jr. in particular, his acting is great in this. Gotta give this one 4 MacGuffins, despite the flaws. It probably would, for me, the werewolf movies have always been some of my favorites of the old school ones. So those elements keep it from jumping up to a 5. So I give The Wolfman a 4. I do recommend it. It's worth seeing, and it is a classic, but a very dated one at points. Probably be back in a couple days. I have no idea what I'm going to be looking at next. My to-watch file has a lot of movies I'm not in a hurry to see. So I don't know if I'm jumping at the bit for some of those, but I still got a couple more in this collection, so maybe I'll keep going here. Or maybe I'll just queue up something on streaming. Don't know yet. Well, take care.